Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast. A very special episode actually of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast, as we're up to episode 200, would you believe, which is a very nice round big figure. Unfortunately, my usual trusty co-host Dan can't be with me. He has just had a baby. But we have a very capable replacement with us this week, Steve from Pullbuoy. Steve, thanks for joining us on this week's episode. We're going to be previewing Aussie trials, but first of all, how are things with you? Like, how's things gone since Champs? That's when we last saw each other.
Yeah, it's all good, thank you. I hope I can live up to Dan. I'm filling in for him on this podcast, but it'll be fun talking about Australian trials. Since British trials, it's been good. Had a bit of a film out, which was great. Which you very kindly helped me with, which went really well.
Really well received.
Yeah, so it's been really good, which was nice. And obviously there's been some great swimming from the Brits as well in the meantime at various places. So it's been good. Yeah,
so the idea of this podcast is we are going to be talking about some of the biggest names at Australian trials. We aren't Aussie swimming experts, we are British swimming experts, but that doesn't mean we don't have a toe in the ocean over there and understanding what's going on. So we're going to talk through some of the best names, what they can do at these trials, and maybe talk about the Olympics as well, because come Olympics, I think for me this is the most exciting team heading to Paris.
Well, that's a big claim. I mean, certainly they are coming off a very good World Championships last year. They topped the medal table. Their women in particular were excellent in Fukuoka. And they still look excellent in what we've seen this season. So, they're going to put up a great show in Paris, I'm sure. The US won't want to come second again on the medal table by any measure, however you arrange it. So, I'm sure the Aussies will be motivated to stay on top of the tree. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in these trials.
Yeah, we might discuss that point to kind of round out this podcast, whether we think they can top that medal table again. Now, as always is the style here at Propulsion Swimming, we will be going through and giving some bold predictions as we go. Steve doesn't have to join in, but Dan has left me a message to play on this podcast of his bold prediction, and we will kick things off there. I think that's a really good place to start.
Hey guys, sorry I can't be on the episode. I know it's a 200th episode as well, so we're going to have to celebrate that at some point, but duty calls, and I do hope that Scott is looking after you, Steve. I'm sure there's going to be some great debates going on. I did have a message from Scott to say that he needs a bold prediction from me from the Australian Olympic trials, and I'm going to go for a big one here. I'm going to go for Kyle Chalmers to go a sub 47 for the 100 metre freestyle. I'll leave that for you to debate on the podcast. I'll catch you guys next week.
Okay, feels like a very big place to start. Kyle Chalmers. What do we think of Dan's prediction? Bold is a statement.
Yeah, it's very bold. I mean, I don't think I would bet against Kyle going 46 point this year. Whether he'll do it at trials is another matter entirely. I guess the question is whether he feels he has to swim that fast 6 weeks out from the Olympics. He's been in good form. I think he broke 22 in the 50 for the first time at the Australian Open, which was a surprise to me. I couldn't believe he'd never done it before. But he's a class act, isn't he? So, you could definitely see him going 46 in Paris. I'm not convinced he's going to do it at trials. He doesn't need to, I don't think. No. I mean, the Aussie times are 48. Qualifying time for the policy is, 48 flat. So... he doesn't need to swim that fast, and that event's not that deep, I don't think, in Australia. So you'd expect him to be top two if he went 47 mid. So I think he'll save the fireworks for Paris.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, from our knowledge, one of the first times he's heading into a big major meet with a clean bill of health. From what we've heard, he's had a change of coach in his build-up through no fault of his own, which is something maybe to keep an eye on. But Aussie Open, he went 47.6. Again, pressure's off. Essentially, pressure's off because we fully expect him to make the team. 47 low. I'm kind of with you, Steve. I don't fully think there's that fully rested swim that's needed at this point in his season, but I'd love to see it. Maybe Dan's gone a bit early on that prediction.
Maybe. I mean, I think he'll know that Pan is swimming super fast, 46.8 at Worlds this year. Dressel is on on a return. Whether he'll be as fast as he was in Tokyo, who knows? But Kyle wants that that second Olympic title, so he's not going to compromise that by targeting these trials, I don't think. Which doesn't mean he won't, as you say, turn up, no pressure, everything goes right, job done. But I can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, pressure's off. It could be when it happens. You never know. But no, he's always been one for the big stage. Actually, he's always shown up on that big occasion. So I'd probably wait till the Olympics for that prediction.
Yeah.
But I think we'll stick with the guys and we'll carry through those because the women's side is really exciting and we'll end with that. So I'll kick things off with my bold prediction. And I think Matt Temple goes the fastest 100 fly time this year, which would be sub 50.06, which is what Josh Liendo did at Canadian trials. Now, he's already gone 50.25, so he's right up there, top 3 swimmers. Can he improve on that? Does he need to improve on that is another question. I think the qualifying time for this is Swiftish, 51.17. But he's one of a handful of names now who could go sub 50 and make that podium in Paris.
Well, I think that's probably my view more likely than what Dan says about Kyle. Sorry, Dan. But he's another one. He's got a little bit of breathing room on the rest of the field, hasn't he? So he maybe doesn't need to be tip top, but he's been consistently 50 point, for a while, hasn't he? So you would expect him to be another 50 point here, 50 point low, maybe 50.06, maybe a bit of a stretch. But never say never, because he, on his day, he's extremely impressive.
Yeah, I had a good debate off in our DMs with Lewis Fraser about who was going to make this 100 fly podium when it came to Paris, because there's some big names floating about. I think I could name 5, 6, maybe. Temple, Grosset, Liendo, Ponti, Dressel, Milak, 2 big names to come back. Who, at this point in time, do you think could get there?
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm reluctant to commit without seeing what form Caleb Dressel's in at US trials, but you think he's coming from a bit further behind, but he's got the class. I don't know. And then you have the mystery that is Christoph Milak and his arguments with his coach very publicly about how much training he is or isn't doing.
He's doing all right when he went to 150 at Mare Nostrum. Yeah. I think he's fine.
So I don't know. I mean, I was not expecting Josh Liendo to go as quick, I'll be honest. So I think that's thrown it all out.
That's probably a good sign for Dressel because they're the same sort of squad out in Florida.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But then, Maxime Grousset is going to have the home crowd.
Yeah.
He's another superb flyer. Maybe will the pressure get to him or will it lift him? I mean, that's the question you have to wonder, isn't it?
We're sitting on the fence here,
we are, yeah. No, that fence is well and truly, yeah, there. I don't know. It's the simple answer.
I quite like Temple. He's really under the radar, a bit like Ponti in the 100 fly. They're both quite under the radar compared to the other 4 names in this who are the known quantity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess the thing with Matt Temple is he's very fast. There's no doubt about that. He's not quite delivered his very best at a championship yet. So I think if he can pull it together on the day, he's got every chance of winning it. But he's just got to get that performance out when he needs it.
While we're talking 100 fly at Aussie trials, then the bigger name, I guess, is Cody Simpson. Has he got a shot of making the team? I think there's some stiff competition. I think the biggest competition might just be the time.
Yeah, I mean, he'd have to drop what? He's entered on a 51.6, so he'd have to drop
0.5.
I've lost it. Yeah, half a second. I mean, maybe he can do that. I mean, there's a lot of guys around that similar sort of entry time. Not least Kyle Chalmers as well. So whether he can get over the top of those guys and make the time remains to be seen, doesn't it? But I think that's the qualifier the media will be wanting to see in Australia, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What with his background and his relationship with Emma and all those other things. Yeah.
For me then, best head-to-head of the week is going to come in Sam Short and Elijah Winnington. Both of them swam 41s in April in the 400. They both went against each other in the 800. I think that's more Sam Short's specialty. Lucas Martin's got rather close to a world record in this one as well earlier on in the year. The 400 at the Olympics last year was fairly disappointing, or not last year, at the Olympics last time round was fairly disappointing in terms of time. I think these two guys have moved it on a step beyond a lot of the field, and actually now we're looking at 342s, 343s to make the final.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really expect the fireworks that they showed in April unless the competitive streak in both of them gets the better of them. But they've only got to go a 345, I believe, to make the team. So it's a fairly comfortable time for both these swimmers.
You would expect them to do it standing on their head, wouldn't you? I mean, having gone 340, 341 earlier this year, there's no one else entered anywhere near that qualifying time. So unless they do a Ian Thorpe and fall off the block, you would expect both of them to qualify. So yeah, it's whether pride comes in and they want to win and it pushes each other on to something special. But
we've had both of them on this podcast, and they both are fairly competitive people. So, I mean, you could see it happening, but I think that swim in April they were testing tapers, and they don't necessarily need to overly taper for this one.
No.
So that's why I think the April swim was the faster swim.
Yeah, and this is an interesting point because obviously Australia has set qualifying times which are a bit faster than the World Aquatics A times. I mean, they're not hugely faster, but they are all faster, and so they're expecting their team to come along and swim those stiffer qualifying times, if you like, 6 weeks out from the Olympics. So I think there will be a number of people, as you just alluded to there, who were testing tapers earlier in the year who won't feel that they need to go all out for this meet because Sam and Elijah, they know they can swim 345 without tapering fully. They know they've just got to be in the top two. The competition is not necessarily there behind them, so they don't need to bring their 340 point form to this meet to go to the Olympics. So, and that might occur in a number of other events, and there will be a few where it won't occur, which I'm sure we'll come to in a minute. But yeah, I think that probably counts against seeing something in a 340 point low.
Do you reckon the world record goes in Paris?
I'd be surprised if it didn't, I'll be honest, because there's too many of them knocking on the door now. If it's one or two, then it can get kind of they get interested in what each other are doing in that race, and and it becomes a race to win rather than a speedy one. But now there's 3 or 4 guys who can all swim 340 point low, or 340 point, and they're going to be racing each other, and those two things are going to collide. So I think it's a great chance for a world record.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We spoke to Sam Short like it was just under a year ago from this point, and he said he fought 340 to make the podium, let alone like to win gold, which is like at that time we were blinking our eyes, but then you see how he races and how he comes down from the 15, the 8, and he's got just the engine inside him. It's me and Dan have spoken about this, and it's the 400 is very different to the 2, and you speak to a lot of coaches, and that 4 is the distance sprint nowadays, and very rarely do you get the 200 swimmers going up to the 4 and swimming it well, and you don't actually get the 400 swimmers going down to the 2 and doing the 2 well. It's usually 4 and above, and the guys who are fast at the 8 and the 15 are now coming down to the 4 and destroying people because they can just swim flat out from the gun.
I think it's definitely changed the way people are swimming it. I agree.
I'm kind of excited to see maybe what Dan Whiffen does in this event as well.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, he's coming from a little way back, isn't he? 345-ish, I think. But who knows?
Yeah. I won't write anything off.
Obviously, Kim Woo Min as well from Korea.
Yeah.
342-ish this year. So, it's going to be a good one. I mean, every race is going to be a good one in Paris, let's be honest, but this is going to be a particularly good one.
Yeah, which is good because it wasn't at the last Olympics.
No.
Another big name who isn't going to have to swim absolutely at his top-notch best, but might want to, Cam McAvoy. The sprinting world has caught up slightly to the massive, impressive times that he was doing last year, especially Ben Proud, what he did at British trials. there's a chance he lays down another marker like he did before last World Championships. But again, the closeness of this meet to the Olympics kind of means he's probably saving taper for a few weeks' time.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, obviously taper is a relative term when it comes to 50-metre freestyle.
Actually, the way he's training it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it probably is less of an issue than it might be for some of the people swimming longer events. So we might see him go very fast. Whether he'll go 21.1 or what he did, like he did in Doha, or 21.0 like he did last year, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it's going to be exciting to see what he can pull out and how he's looking, because we've obviously got a vested interest sitting in Britain, having seen Ben Proud's 21.2 at British trials. So those two going head to head again. Obviously Vlad Bukov as well, who won the world title, will be looking on interestedly, I'm sure.
There's plenty of the Americans to come yet as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, no, he. I think. Well, he'll qualify, won't he? Let's be honest. He's in the 100 as well. Although, everyone has said that he's not really focused on it. I wonder whether that's just a case of getting a time in case they decide they want him in the relay. But yeah, I'm sure he's focused on the 50 when it comes to the individuals.
Interested in that, because Ben has always said Ben has always swum better in the 50 after he dropped the 100.
Absolutely, yeah.
Stopped thinking about the team and started focusing on his own individual. It's weird that Cam's gone back to swim in the 100, but maybe you're right. Maybe they do want him for that relay, given the depth of Britain, depth of America, depth of other nations coming through.
I mean, it's after the 50 at these trials as well. So maybe he just thinks, well, I'm there. I'll have done my main event. I'll have qualified. He said, in all likelihood, give it a bash, see what happens. He probably isn't training for it, but then he's at least he's there and he's shown what he can do if the selectors decide, well, do you want to swim a heat or whatever.
So rounding up the guys' side then, the biggest name that we've not spoken about so far, Zach Stubblety-Cook, so former world record holder in the 200 metre. He's gonna want to get that back from Chin this summer. It will have been eye-opening, the performances that beat him. He definitely won't need to be anywhere near his best. I'm not expecting rapid times. A bit like a lot of these people that we've spoken about, which is kind of a shame. Like, going into a big major trials, they don't have to swim absolutely flat out, but I think this is the level of swimmers that actually Australia have in their back pocket.
Yeah, I mean, it cuts both ways, doesn't it? It's that he's very good. Extremely good, particularly in the 200. And there's the depth behind him is perhaps not as much as it could be, so he doesn't necessarily have to be right at his very best. I mean, he's a good several seconds ahead of the next fastest entrant in that 200 breaststroke. So I don't, he went 2:07.5 at the Aussie Open, I think it was. Yeah. And I expect he'll swim something similar again, maybe a touch faster, who knows? But he'll need to be in the 2:05s when he come Paris if he wants to challenge Chin.
I think he's got a fight on his hands to make the team in the 100, which is an interesting spot for the Aussies, because medley relay wise, you've got exceptionally good Carl Chalmers, exceptionally good Matt Temple. Isaac Cooper on the backstroke is no slouch, and then maybe the breaststroke is their weaker leg, so it's a case of, can any of them get down to 58s? Really?
Well, I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head with where their weakness is in that 4x1 medley. I mean, Zach's in prime spot for it, but Sam Williamson, he's the next down. He was quite impressive in certainly over 50 in at the Worlds earlier this year, but he hasn't necessarily shown it over 100. So if he took a step forward, then he could easily get past Zach for that that number one spot, and then that makes the relay an interesting decision for their selectors. But you're right. They don't have a 58-point swimmer at the moment. We'll see in a few weeks in a week's time whether they've got one.
Yeah, it leaves an interesting conundrum, a bit like the British side. Like, I mean, me and you could probably talk about the British medley relay all day. Like, suddenly Ollie Morgan's got exceptionally good, Adam's back to his best. You've got a number of swimmers you could put on the the freestyle leg. Probably Matt Richards is the leading light, but of those right now. And then
Yeah.
the fly is just this little bit of an unknown, and we'll see what happens when Paris comes around.
Yes, I mean it's a very similar situation as you say with fly for us and the breaststroke for the Australian team. So yeah, one to watch, I think, for that one, because Williamson's got the speed. Sam Williamson's got the opening speed for the first 50, and Zach will come back a lot faster on the second half. So it could be an interesting kind of race the way it plays out.
Any other guys you want to throw into the mix then before we go through the all-star girls cast that will be racing out in Australia?
Now you've put me on the spot.
I think that might be most of the big names covered.
I think it is, yeah. I think everyone I was looking out for, I think, has been covered by that roundup. Yes.
Nice. Women's side then, and I want to start with Katie McEwen, because for me, I keep saying this all the time, she's the best swimmer in the world, in my opinion, and I would say comfortably, just because of the things that she's doing in the water. Every time she does swim backstroke, there's a chance of a world record. Is there a chance at this meet? Like, we've said so many times with the guys already that the qualifying times aren't a consideration for her, but the way that she swims and how fast she races, I really wouldn't put it past her actually hitting a world record already, like this point in the year.
No, I agree. I mean, she doesn't need to do it, but she's so good that she probably could, half a taper and turn up and swim a world record in 100 back quite easily. You can see. I mean, I'm sure there will be a lot of people who will be saying, "What about Summer McIntosh?" when you're talking about the best swimmer in the world. But
the level of dominance that she had in 2023, winning everything in the backstroke events and setting times that have never been done before, and then you think she's doing it also in the 2IM. Yes, she got DQ'd at Worlds, and that's going to be a mighty good battle. But I don't see any, like, the level of her backstroke ahead of everyone else. And you think Reagan Smith is an incredibly good backstroker, but I don't think me and you would argue a case for her winning gold at this moment in time, which says quite a lot about the quality of swimmer.
That's fair. I mean, I think it's a debate on how you measure it as to whether you go with Kaylee or Summer, or maybe even someone like Sarah Sjostrom in terms of her dominance in a particular event. But yes, Kaylee is incredible. There's no doubt about that. I like the way she swam a 400 IM and swam, 428
exactly.
or whatever
She's
it
not
was.
even
That's
swimming
my
yet.
one done for the year. I have to do one a year, and that was that. And it's just that ridiculously good time. So yes. Yeah, it'd be interesting. There's lots of people who say that the Australia should swim her on the breaststroke leg of their medley relay, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean,
she's that versatile.
I guess then you've got, you could put Molly O'Callaghan on
Exactly.
the backstroke, and then you could put any
one of 5 on the freestyle.
Freestyle. Yeah. Can they actually get close on that 4x1 medley relay though?
I mean, it all does come. It
comes to the breaststroke.
Breaststroke. It's the same as we were just talking about with the men. It depends. Charlie Hodges, she was the breaststroker in Tokyo for the medley relay. So I mean, that's the leg they're going to have to fill. Obviously, Jenna Strauch and Abby Harkin, probably the two in the frame for that. But yeah, lots of people have said stick Kaylee in there. You want to get your 4 best swimmers in your relay team. Maybe you need to think a bit out of left field, but I can't see it myself.
I would say she's got a busy enough schedule, but she's in that relay no matter what.
Yeah,
it's just whether you make her do a swim for time or when. You'd have to do it in training really to find out.
Yeah,
she's not entered at it.
She's not swimming it in these trials. I mean, I don't think it will actually happen. I've just seen, lots of people have said, well, why not? I think the 2 breaststroke ladies I just mentioned will have something to say about that anyway.
I think the more interesting event for her at this meet, because the backstroke speaks for itself, is the 2IM. Mm-hmm. So there's been a lot of talk about can anyone get near to Katinka Hossu's record, which I think is a little absurd. That record's very, very fast. But the battle between her, Summer, and whichever 2 Americans come out of their trials is really interesting. And she, again, this is one where I could see her laying down more of a marker after seeing what Summer did at Canadians. and knowing that the Americans are racing like a week later.
Yeah, I mean, I think the world record might be a stretch. These trials, Siobhan Marie O'Connor's Commonwealth record, that could be in danger though. Someone missed it by a couple of hundredths or something. I think at the Canadian trials, but I think that could be on notice perhaps this week. But you're right, the Kazinka's record is bonkers. I'm not sure that will go in Paris either. But yeah, it's another one where she'll be swimming it almost like a time trial. She's got a second or two on everyone else.
But she's used to that by now.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's how she set the 2:06.9 or whatever, wasn't it? At Sydney Open was practically a solo swim. So, or whenever it was, I can't remember. But yeah, maybe I'm thinking of the 200 battle world record or something. Anyway, you're right. She's used to swimming by herself, so I don't think that's going to be the problem.
Yeah, I think the way this 2am, I do think the 2am is the deepest event in women's swimming, like in the world. The way that it has gone since the British trials, where you saw Abby do this incredible PB, Abby Wood, and suddenly how the world has got progressively faster and faster. You've gone, okay, for Abby to make the final in the 2am is a hell of an achievement come Paris.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like you, when she went 2:08, I thought, she could probably knock another half second or so off. That's the final easily. And then since then, you're thinking, oh, hang on a minute. That's right, struggling unless she can drop a second from what she did at trials.
It's nuts.
But yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, and then you get people like Sydney Pickram drop a second off her best time, at the age of 27 or however old she is,
I kind of feel like it's been coming for Sydney Pickram,
yes,
though.
I agree.
Like, she's been swimming really, really well. She's an incredibly good short course swimmer as well. Like, lights out there. So for her to see her finally drop that time, I think I wasn't really surprised.
No, and it was the way she went about it, wasn't it? That and I think I saw her coach saying that they haven't really worked on speed. They've just worked on being able to do everything more efficiently, so she could make the most of her breaststroke, prowess. So she got through the fly and the backstroke whilst expending less energy and going the same speed, and then could drop the hammer for the breaststroke. And there was the result, 2:07.6. So she's thrown herself into the conversations, again, as well as all the people you've already mentioned.
So many names.
Yes.
Back to Aussie trial
Yes.
previews then. One of the other Golden Girls swimming is Molly O'Callaghan. So she set the world record in the 200 free last summer, a record which I thought was close to unbeatable, given Pellegrini's supersuit time in it. But a 1:52.85. She's dominated the 100 free as well recently, 52.08 last year. She's already gone a 52.2. She will have to swim fast in the 100 free. There is no doubt about that to secure her place in the team. It's not a case of she's the fastest in the world. She's been for a little while. She's on the plane. There are a host of other names that could join her or challenge her even. Yeah,
we mentioned a couple of times about people not necessarily having to be right at their best because there's a bit of a gap to them and then the others. That women's 100 freestyle is the exact opposite, because if you're not at your absolute best going into that race at Australian trials, you're going to come nowhere. Yep. I mean, it is absolutely stacked. I mean, you talk about stacked races; they don't get better than this, particularly at a national level. I mean, the top 8 that are swimming in these trials could easily be the Olympic final. I mean, it's that fast. It is crazy when you consider that the 8th fastest entrant is 53.7.
That's almost under the qualification time already.
Yeah. So it's going to be crazy fast.
Oh man. Yeah, the names Emma McKeon, Shayna Jack, like Meg Harris, I think second fastest this year.
Yes.
Second fastest Aussie this year.
Yes, second fastest Aussie this year. Yep.
Heading in as well, like to think what Emma McKeon did last Olympics, and then you're looking just like, okay, where's the individual swim? It's not in the freestyle right now. Like it's a little bit crazy.
No, it's you've got the defending champion in the 50 and 100 free from Tokyo, and she could very easily not make it in this 100 free for an individual swim. She could very easily not make the relay or the top 4 of the relay, if things don't go away. I mean, it is crazy. And what, the pressure on those girls will be big, because it's as near as you can get. If you get in that top 6 and get in that squad, it's as near as you can get in sport to a almost guaranteed Olympic medal. And I probably the gold, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So, getting on that top 6 is going to be
cooker.
incredibly tense.
I take your unbiased hat off here, Steve. Better domestic race, this or the men's 2-3 in Britain?
I'm going to say this.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, the men's 2-3 in Britain is brilliant, but I think this one is so many other sort of subplots in it as well. I mean, we mentioned Emma McKeon there. You've got Kate Campbell, who's come back again for another one. If she gets into that relay team, and if they were to win a medal, that would be 5 consecutive medals that she'd won in the 4x100 free. The last 3 of those have been gold, bronze in 2008. So that would be an incredible record. I think Jenny Thompson from America has won 4 consecutive, so they're tied at the moment. There may be others, I couldn't find any. So if Kate would overtake that record as well, if she were to manage to get into that squad. But she's got it all to do, coming back from a bit of a break after Tokyo and what have you. So
I haven't really seen overly what she's done so far this year either.
So she's 53 low this year.
Okay.
I'm just trying to find her on this list, but Gamble, where are you? I can't even find Bronte. But she's been
Bronte's swimming, is she?
Well, she's come off an injury, and she is entered. She had a calf injury. But she's been 53.5 this year as well. So it is crazy.
Yeah.
And I think the production line is still going, isn't it? You've got Olivia Wunsch, who's just been 53.5, who's 18. Miller Jansen, just on the cusp of swimming 53. She's 17. There's those youngsters coming through. It's the same thing. Success breeds success, and we suddenly generated a whole load of 200 freestylers for a period of time.
Yeah.
Australia's got the same thing in this event.
Yeah, it's the exact same effect, isn't it? Because we're fairly weak in the 400 because everyone just wants to swim that 4x2 relay. They don't target above it. Everyone just wants that spot. I'm sure it's going to happen now in the 4x1 in this country as well.
Yeah.
Which is why it's great to see the depth, but it does sometimes hurt the other events a little bit all over the place.
Yeah. Just looking a bit further down the entry list, your best swimmer in the world, Kaylee McKeown, entered at 54.3
as well.
Yeah, what do you reckon? 53 from her?
I wouldn't put it past her. God forbid they take 6 and she swims the 7th spot in the heats or something like that. Who knows?
You could see it happening though, couldn't you?
Yeah.
If she's not busy enough already.
But like we've just said, every other race that she could swim at the Champs could just be a walk in the park, and then she targets this out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Just because she wants another guaranteed gold.
On the subject of Molly O'Callaghan, though, we started this segment with her, obviously talking about 200 free world record. She's in for the 100 back this time as well. Obviously, second fastest entrant behind Kaylee. She's got a bit of a gap to the third fastest entrant, who is, I think, if I get this right, Iona Anderson, who's a bit of an up-and-comer. I don't think she can break the top 2, but she's one worth watching. 18-year-old from Western Australia. She could dip into the 58s, perhaps, entered at a 59.2. But Molly in for the 100 back as well, which is I don't think we saw her swim it at Worlds last year, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think if she did, it certainly went under the radar for other swims that were happening in the pool.
Yes.
I think it does get lost that she's an incredibly good backstroker. The 2-3. Can Ariane Titmus challenge her again? Can she get back to that level? No one's got to the level that Molly's got to recently, but can she reclaim that title of fastest Aussie in 200?
I don't know. Her and Molly are again miles ahead of the next entrant. A couple of seconds to spare. Obviously, Ariane's had her health issues in recent times. We don't know whether she's going to be back to her best at this point of the year. I think my money would be on Molly for trials, but who knows when Paris rolls around which way it could go, and pressure and everything. But again, it'll be another one where obviously Molly swims everything very differently from everyone else. So in that 100, she'll be nowhere 50 and
50,
then
yeah.
leading at the end, or in the battle for the lead at the end, and then similarly in the 200. So, it's a clash of styles again.
She does Kyle Chalmers' tactic better than Kyle Chalmers
She does.
It's nuts. I'm kind of interested 400 and up to see what Lani Pallister does.
Yeah.
I think you break 4 minutes in that 4-3 and you're world class swimmer. I think she can do it at this meet and start putting her name in amongst the likes of Summer, Katie, Fairweather as well. It's going to be tough to make the podium with those 3, but I know Summer didn't quite have the swim that she wanted at Canadian trials. So you never quite know. She is one of those who's come down from the distance down to the 400, which certainly suits the guys. Interested to see what she can do against Ariane in the 4.
It will be interesting, won't it? As you say, she's a decent 200 freestyler as well, Lani Pallister. So if she can find that sweet spot over 400, sub 4 minutes could definitely be on the cards. I mean, but the thing is, not that long ago, sub 4 minutes, you were thinking, you'll definitely win a medal with that. Not anymore.
Yeah, no. I don't know what sort of time you've got to go to podium.
No, who knows?
457, 456?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah. And we'll round out with the sprinters then. Shayna Jack. So we've talked about Kate Campbell, who is, or was, the class of the 50 in Australia, but Shayna Jack's come good over the last year or so. I'm not sure anyone can challenge Sjostrom in the 50, the way that she's swimming, especially what she's just done, Mare Nostrum mid-season, sub 24 again.
For the 976th time, whatever it was.
I think it's like 30 seconds.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But I like her odds of making certainly making the team on the 50. She's a bit of a dark horse for it come Paris. And the 50 and translates well to that 4x1 relay as well.
So I think the question in the 50, there's 3 into 2. I think probably, Emma McKeon, defending champion. We don't know quite where she is. Shayna certainly looked impressive so far this year. Kate's coming back, as we've said. Meg Harris, maybe. Maybe, I don't know if she comes down from 100. But you could certainly, the 2 individual spots you'd think would go McKeon, Jack, Campbell, and it's whoever does it on the day. I mean, you'd like to think, well, based on what we've just said about the 100, you'd think all 3 of them would be in Paris, but who's going to get these individual swims? Who knows?
You never know. It might come down to who gets the 50 spot. Is there a cap on the team that they take, like we had? I'm putting you on the spot here.
I mean, there will be a cap from World Aquatics, if nothing else. But I don't know whether Australia have lowered that as beyond that. Let's have a quick squiz. So Australia has limited themselves to the same as World Aquatics, which is 52. So I don't think.
So they're fine.
I don't think they're going to run up against a problem on that point of view. So 26 male and 26 female.
That's nuts when you think of the size that British swimmer was capped to.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So there'll be no trouble from that point of view, I don't think.
Okay,
they may not even get to they won't get 52, make their times, I don't think. But no, everyone who makes those times should get picked, I think.
Yeah, I quite like Shayna Jack for the 53 over just because I know what she's done this year. I just don't know where the other 2 are at.
Quite. We haven't seen them at their best this year, and we know that Shayna has swum very fast. Yeah. So
I had this down as
a reasonable position.
I had this down as one of my bold predictions was Shayna Jack makes the team ahead of Emma McKeon, I still think they made the team, but I didn't think it was bold enough.
No, I don't think it is either. I think it's more than possible.
Quick fire. Any others we're missing? I think Elizabeth Decker's in the 2 fly.
Yep.
When we talk about British interest when it comes to Paris, it's quite a strong event for British swimming. It'd be good to see where she's at. She's a 2:05 swimmer.
2:05.2 entry time. So
she's a 2:05 swimmer, which will reduce the likelihood of a podium for Laura Stevens and Kiana McInnes if she is about that mark. So British interest-wise, interested to see her. Maybe Brianna Thossell in the 100 fly.
Yeah,
interested to see what she could do as well.
I mean, she's probably got an interesting situation in terms of what McKeon's doing. Yeah. I mean, Emma's entered fastest, but we don't know where she's at, like we keep saying. Yep. So maybe there's a win there for Brianna. Wait and see. I know those 2 are a little bit quicker than, as we've said a lot of times, a little bit quicker than than the competition. But
It's a stiff time,
she
though.
might fancy winning. Yeah,
Stiff time that they got to hit. They got to go 57.1. So
yeah.
it's good.
Okay, be interesting to see. Sorry, in that event while we're talking about it, and I know she's not Australian, but Rikako Ike from Japan, who obviously trains in Queensland.
Yeah.
No swimming here, so great to see her continuing her comeback after she had a terrible illness just before Tokyo.
Interesting that they're allowed foreign entries at an Olympic trials.
I'm not sure they can swim the finals, but
Is that the same as British?
Yeah.
'Cause we had it with a few of the Loughborough internationals, didn't we?
yes, and there were a number of international para swimmers as well. So
Yes.
I suspect maybe they can swim B finals or something. I don't know, but I don't think they can swim the main finals.
Okay, big question to round out this podcast then, Steve. Can Australia top the medal table when it comes to Paris?
Well, I kind of alluded to the games that NBC played with the medal table last year. So if they order it properly by golds first, then yes, definitely, I think they can.
I think the freestyle on the women's side is just they could win all number of medals.
Yeah, I think. I mean, the US will do very well. Let's not beat around the bush. And we haven't seen their trials. We don't know quite how well or how fast they will be. I think what might favour Australia is that the US medal haul might be reduced by other countries. If you know what I mean, people like Milak or Summer McIntosh or whatever, who are strong in events that the US are also strong at.
Yeah.
That might play into Australia's hands. But I think if Australia turn up all guns blazing, and they're good at doing that normally, they've moved their trials later. That seems to be working for them, since Tokyo. So I can't see why they couldn't.
Yeah,
We've gone through. You can see, any number of medals from the men's side, hatfuls of golds potentially on the women's side. So yes, they definitely can. Whether they will is going to come down to how fast the Americans are.
Yeah, we've got time to properly predict this once we know what the Americans have done. I think it's literally like 5 days after? Not even
it's
5
very
days
close.
After.
Yeah,
It's like straight after the back of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that just about rounds up this week's episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast. Steve, thank you very much for joining me. I promised you beforehand it wouldn't be one of our 2-hour preview podcasts. We haven't got that long.
That was my condition for saying yes, that we weren't doing this for 2.5 hours. But it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Like I said in the intro, this year has been the 200th episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast. We will do something a little bit special to mark this later on in the summer, probably after the Olympics and when Dan's got his feet underneath him being a dad for the first time. I know the past few weeks have been a little bit unstructured with when the podcasts have been coming out, but that's just the fun of having a full-time job and family commitments for both of us. But thank you so much for everyone who stuck with us for 200 episodes, and long may 200 more continue. I mean, it's taken us 3-4 years to get to this mark.
Well, I mean, I say that's quite quick. We've been going for 10 years and done 130, so I think you're doing pretty well.
That just about rounds up this week's episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so on Apple Podcasts, YouTube and Spotify, and I will be back hopefully in 1 week's time, either reviewing this meet or with another guest. We will see what happens. Thanks, Steve, and see you all very soon.
You've been listening to the Propulsion Swimming Podcast with Scott and Dan. We want to thank you for joining us and invite you to subscribe to the show, as well as checking out the Propulsion Swimming YouTube channel for weekly tutorials and videos to get your swimming fix. We will be back next week. Until then, we'll catch you on the next one.